Coming up on this episode of the Hockey Nuts, Steve and I get you caught up with all of the news of the past week around the hockey world. Playoff races are in full swing, and we'll get you caught up with where every team stands. We'll also have the latest ownership news out of Carolina and Seattle, and we'll even have some Olympic news for you. We'll have all the details of all of this, plus the Minor League Hockey Minute, the NCAA Hockey Minute, and our picks of the week coming up next. This is the Hockey Nuts Podcast, Season 2, Episode 16, recorded on Thursday, December 7th, 2017. Breaking news from the NHL.
Shut up and sit down.
Hello and welcome to the Season 2, Episode 16 version of the Hockey Nuts Podcast. My name is Wayne Halley. I'm here with Steve Ball. How's it going this week, Steve?
Good evening, Wayne. Going great. Good to be with you again. Another great podcast, stuff to talk about, and I'm excited.
We got a lot to talk about. We've got some NHL stuff, a lot of suspensions and fines and everything else again this week. We've got some injuries to talk about. We've got some all-star voting to talk about. We've got, let's see, what else? Oh, Olympic news. We've got some Olympic of that. We've got some Olympic news to bring you.
Right.
And then, of course, as usual, we talk a little bit of minor league hockey and we talk a little bit of college hockey. So we're spanning the spectrum of the hockey world a little bit this week.
Spanning the globe.
To bring you the constant variety of hockey, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So without further ado, let's get things started right away and talk about our three teams and how they've done over the past week. And the Rangers had a big week.
This is Noah Hannafin along the blue line. Now Teravainen centers and a save by Lundqvist on Aho, and the rebound went wide by Falk.
Excellent save. Bang, bang play. Quick pass, quick shot. Lundqvist got the pads together.
Shattenkirk takes a deep center. Score! Michael Grabner! Off a great pass from Kevin Shattenkirk. And the Rangers lead it 2-1.
Although it was a bit of a short one, but a perfect week.
A big week, and only 2 games. But, I tell you, the game against Carolina once again developed into a rout, although this time it wasn't until nearly the end of the game. It was a close game up until the end, but once again, we beat them solidly 5-1. Michael Grabner had a hat trick in that game, and that was at the Garden versus the first time we played them. So quite a few hats fell to the ice. And the take on Michael Grabner at the first of the year in the fantasy hockey sector was that, he was really very fortunate to score his 27 goals last year, and that he was a flash in the pan, and that type stuff. And that's turning out not to be true. Michael Grabner is having a very good year once again for the Rangers. He's a reliable player. He has that breakaway speed that is just about every game is evident. There's usually a breakaway at least once a game. So, I was really happy for him. I think it's his first hat trick as a Ranger. In fact, I know it is. And but once again, he played a stellar game, and we played well defensively. Henrik again played very well, and knock on wood, the month of November was really good for Henrik. I think he had 11 wins, which is really good. So that win, and then coupled with our win in Pittsburgh on Tuesday night, which really we got away with playing poorly in the second period. But if you take that period away, this could have been a 5 or 6-3 win easily. Jari made some very good saves, and Pittsburgh, as always happens with them, they get the breaks. Pittsburgh, they're a team that capitalizes on the opportunities that come their way. You got to say that, and that's the way they've been for a long time. Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin era, they are a team that when they get opportunities in your end, they know how to capitalize on them. And they did against us, but we were fortunate to hold it down and win that game. But that was a big win in Pittsburgh, where we don't fare too well often. But we did the other night. Boo Nieves got his first NHL goal, so a lot of good things to talk about. And I'm going on and on here, so let me stop and let you talk about your Bruins.
Well, let's talk about the Carolina Hurricanes first.
Florida completes the change. Aaron Ekblad, Nick Bukestad get out there. Ekblad away from Aho. Rask is out in front. Aho tries to power in. Verbata drops it off for Ekblad. Radim Verbata pickpocketed by Rask. Hampered by Verbata. He'll lay it along out of the corner. Folk got to it. Nobody home. Out in front. 38 seconds left. Here comes Aho. Shielded by Verbata. He'll turn. He'll dangle. He'll bring it back to the line. Sebastian Aho moves in on Verbata. Maybe a chance. Reimer said no. Folk out in front. 23 seconds left in overtime. Here come the Panthers. Verbata. Ekblad's in. Sent high. Over the top of Ward. 15 seconds left in OT. Here comes Skinner. Right in. Turned out by Reimer. Loose puck. Ekblad got to it. 7 seconds left. Lindholm's got it. Out in front. Hannafin. What a save. They score. They score. Noah Hannafin wins it in overtime.
What absolutely sensational overtime period. Both teams had chances, but Carolina had the better of the chances. And Noah Hannafin ends it with second effort.
Yes.
Because obviously they played the Rangers this past week. And I want to go back to that game where, the Rangers did come out 5-1 on top of that game. But that game reminded me just like a game back in October. On October 24th, the Tampa Bay Lightning played the Carolina Hurricanes. And that game was 2-1 Lightning until about the 17:30 mark, roughly, of the third period. And then Carolina pulled their goalie to try to tie the game. Tampa Bay got the 3-1 lead, and then, another empty net goal was 4-1. Then they finally put the goalie back in, and they, after everybody had given up, basically, they scored yet another goal to make it 5-1. So the game was very close right up until the end. This Ranger win against Carolina reminded me exactly like that game.
It was very close.
Yeah.
You're right.
So, and that just tells me that Carolina is a team. I know we were picking Carolina to going to make a big splash this year, going to make the playoffs, and a lot of people were picking them. But games like that tell you just how inexperienced Carolina is, and how they still have a ways to go before they're ready to compete with the big boys. If they do turn things around and squeak into the playoffs, I think that's the best you can expect from this team this year.
Right.
Because they're just they're having games like that where they're just simply, and when they have leads, they tend to give them up. So that it just speaks to a team that's just inexperienced and doesn't know yet how to put teams away.
I think that's very good, Wayne.
Yeah.
You know what? I agree with you 100% on that. I think they're a wild card playoff team at best.
At best. Yep.
But I think I still say, listen, in the Atlantic in the Metropolitan where they're playing, you're seeing two teams who are playing exceptionally well that one team really hasn't for a long time since the Marty Brodeur era ended, and that's New Jersey. But the New York Islanders are playing exceptionally well for the team that they have.
Yep.
And those two teams, if they fade out of the picture, it opens up room for Carolina. And, I still say one of those teams is going to fade out. I don't think they're going to make it. But right now, both of them are doing exceptionally well. So,
and Carolina did have a kind of actually, everybody had a very slow week this week. I think I don't know what was the reason for that, but it was a very light week schedule around the league. Carolina only had 3 games. There wasn't a lot of teams that had 4 games this week.
Right.
But Carolina had 3. They had that 5-1 loss at the Rangers on the first. They had a 3-2 overtime win against Florida on the 2nd, so the very next night. And that was a very exciting game. I talked to more than one person at my local beer league who went to that game, and they said it was incredible how well Carolina played. They played with jam. They played with intensity. Florida tried to come in and play a very physical style that night, and Carolina matched them and ended up winning. I completely missed this game, so all I'm going on of what other fans have told me, other guys that I personally play hockey with on Sundays and Mondays, that told me that were actually at that game, told me how well and how entertaining that game was.
Wow.
But Carolina gets the overtime win against Florida in that one. And then the third game of the week was a 3-0 loss at Vancouver, which is the first game of I don't have it in front of me. It's either 4 or 5 game road trip where they are basically doing the entire California swing, but also doing the Vancouver. And I think there's a game. Hang on. Let me pull it up here. Let me get to December. So, yeah, Carolina is playing. They lost 3-0 to Vancouver in the first game of that long road trip. And then next they've got San Jose, LA, Anaheim, and Vegas. And then also they're going to Buffalo before they come back home. So Carolina's going to be on the road for a little while, and that was the very first game of that road trip, and they just couldn't get anything going in that game against Vancouver. I watched probably the second half of that game. I know it was a very late game, but I got home late from whatever. I was home all day. I was off, but I was working on my living room all day, and I happened to get finished that night, and I decided to sit down and watch a little hockey before I went to bed, and I watched the second half of that game. But it just, from what it sounded, I missed the first period. From what it sounded like, Carolina outplayed Vancouver in the first, but then came out flat in the second, and they played pretty much that way the rest of the game. Yeah. And Jacob Markstrom for Vancouver got the shutout in that one, and what I found out in that game was that was his first career shutout. And he had 114, I think, is the stat I saw. 114 starts before finally getting the shutout in that one.
Wow.
So
that is a long time.
This day and age, that's a long time. Back in the 80s, that wouldn't be that difficult because scoring was so high back then. But but this day and age, shutouts are not that difficult to get. So
right.
So yeah. So Carolina loses that first game. So it'll be interesting to see in the next game if they show up or put out a better showing. But it was overall it was a rather weak performance in terms of road game, particularly against a Vancouver team that we thought was not going to be very good, but they've been better than expected this year. So all right, let's move on to the Bruins.
Bergeron rakes it loose. Pasternak jabs it from the down ice side. A pile of 6 players along the boards, and McAvoy finds the puck. Marchand dekes and scores! The Bruins are up 3-0, and the Boo Birds are exercising their lungs at Wells Fargo.
And they, too, only had 2 games this week. They had a 3-0 win at Philadelphia on the 2nd, which I missed because I was working. It was a Saturday 1 o'clock matinee game, and I completely missed that because I was working. And I still haven't watched the replay, but it was a 3-0 win. And Tuukka got the shutout, which should... I listened to a lot of Boston Bruins podcasts. There's several of them I listen to. And apparently, among the fans in Boston, there's a lot of Tuukka Rask haters out there.
Yeah.
You know how Boston fans can be. Yeah. They're very negative on their teams sometimes. But anyway, a lot of Tuukka Rask haters went silent on Saturday because Tuukka come out and got the 3-0 shutout win against Philadelphia on the 2nd. And then on the 4th, they went into Nashville, and I did watch that game, and that ended up being a 5-3 loss. They fell down 3-0 really quickly in that game, and were basically, for the first period or so, just didn't play very well at all against Nashville, and then came out, and I pretty much feel they outplayed Nashville for the most part for the rest of the game, and they brought the game back to at one point it was 4-3 in the third period, and then Nashville got their 5th goal. It wasn't an empty netter, but it was getting on later in the game. I don't know exactly when that 5th goal was scored, but it was midway to the later part of the third period. They went up 5-3 and ended up holding on in that game. So, so a split week for the Bruins. and a very short week for the Bruins, just like the Rangers. But the good thing is that game against Nashville was the last game that they'll play outside the Eastern time zone until mid-February, which should help with the travel situation for them.
Right.
Of course, in mid-February, they're doing the Western Canada swing, the Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton swing.
Right.
So they'll have to do that one more time. But other than that, they're pretty much one of the advantages of being an Eastern Conference team is you rarely change time zones. And in this case, the Bruins won't be changing time zones until mid-February. But overall on the Bruins, they continue to. Leading up to this week, they were playing very, very well. We're getting points in almost every game they played. They're starting to get healthy again. Having only 2 games has helped the Bruins in the fact that I know they got David Backes back last week. Marchand was back in there. They got the Marchand-Bergeron line back together. They got Krejci back. I mean, they're starting to get some of their better players back. So we still have yet to see this team play with all of their quote-unquote core players all playing at the same time. I don't think we've had a single game yet where the Bruins have had that. So we're getting back there, and guys are getting healthy again. So hopefully we'll get to see what the potential of this team really is.
Yes.
And right now they're sitting on the outside looking in the standings, but they got a few games in hand on a few teams. So, and speaking of standings, why don't we take a look at those real quick before we move on? In the East, the top 3 right now in the Metropolitan Division is New Jersey, Columbus, and Washington, which Washington is the big surprise there. They were kind of middle of the pack road up until recently, but they're 7-3 in their last 10. They've won 3 in a row, and they found themselves right back in the thick of things in the Metro. Yep. And that's a logjam there. There's only 1 point that separates those 3 teams.
Yeah, I don't see that. I don't see that continuing, Wayne, but stranger things have happened. If you look at Columbus, at New Jersey at 36 points leading, and if you count the Rangers in that, we have 32 points. 4 points really separate 5 teams.
And as of right now, your 4 points, your team's 4 points out of first, but now they're on the outside of the playoffs looking in. That's right. How close it is. The Rangers are sitting in that 9th spot right now. So, you've got Jersey, Columbus, Washington in the top 3 at 36, 35, 35. And then in the Metro, or actually the Metro holds both wildcard spots, the Islanders and Pittsburgh at 34 and 33, and then you got the Rangers at 32.
Yep.
So, you've got 6 teams right there vying for 5 playoff spots.
Yeah,
right
it's
now.
crazy.
And a little bit below that, the next team down below the Rangers is the Carolina Hurricanes, but they're 5 points back from the Rangers.
Right.
There's a bit of a gap right there right now.
Yes, a gap is developing, and whether or not that continues, I don't know, but
and then behind Carolina, you've got Philadelphia tied with them actually, but Carolina has 2 games in hand on Philadelphia with 27, and then you've got that's it. Philadelphia is the last place team in the Metro.
Yep.
Now in the Atlantic, your top 3 are Tampa Bay, Toronto, and Montreal at 40, 37, and 29. So there's still quite a gap there between that 2nd and 3rd spot in the Atlantic. You got Tampa Bay and Toronto kind of running away with things right now, and then an 8-point drop to the 3rd spot in Montreal. And then right behind Montreal is Boston, but Boston is sitting in the 10th spot. So Boston's in 4th in the division, but they're still below the Rangers on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
But Boston has played the fewest games of any team in the Eastern Conference. They've only played 25 games. Everybody else has played 27, 28, and 29. So, there is Carolina with only 26.
Right.
But everybody else, 27, 28, 29. So, Boston has, on most teams, between 3 and 4 games in hand. So, even though they're sitting that far back, they're 1 point behind Montreal for that 3rd spot. But they've got 4 games in hand on Montreal.
Yeah.
So they can likely will easily catch Montreal. Yep. As long as they can stay with them in terms of games going forward.
That's right.
And then behind Boston, you've got Detroit with 27, Ottawa with 24, Florida with 24, and then Buffalo is slipping further back at 18 points. So I see them pretty much out of the picture at this point. They would have to have a miraculous turnaround to get back into it.
Yeah.
They're 2-8 in their last 10, and they're look at their goal differentials, -36, by far the worst in the East.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to the West. In Central Division, you've got Nashville, Winnipeg, St. Louis at 39, 38, 38. You've got LA, in the Pacific, your top three is LA, Vegas, and Vancouver at 39, 35, and 32. And then your two wild cards are Dallas, San Jose at 33 and 30. And then on the outside looking in, you've got Calgary at 30, Anaheim 30, Minnesota 29, Chicago 29, Colorado 26, Edmonton 24, Arizona 19.
Yep.
So what's jumping out at you on this one?
Two things. Really three. First, the LA Kings they're rolling. They're playing very, and I happened to watch one of their games this week. They're playing very well.
Yeah, they sputtered for a while.
They did, but they're not sputtering now. They're playing well, and
they've won 6 in a row.
They are shaping up to be the team that from the West that could very well do that. Those guys in Winnipeg are the two solid looking teams on the ice. And Nashville's making a comeback. They really are. But I still say Winnipeg is the class of the Central right now. They're really playing well. And then the second thing is how poorly the Chicago Blackhawks. They're not. I watched them blow a 3-goal lead. I think it was 3 goals against the New Jersey Devils. They had that game won, and they wound up losing 7-5. I think they were up 5-2. Mm-hmm. And they're just not playing well. It really is surprising. You could throw Edmonton in the hat there too. They're really they're in trouble now of being out of this. They are really getting close to being out, having to win, go on a tremendous, winning 16 or 17 games out of 20 to get back into it. If they don't watch it, that's what's going to wind up happening. But those are the two things that really jump out at me is the exceptional play of the Kings that we really didn't anticipate, although we said possibly could happen, along with throw Winnipeg in there, and then the poor play of two teams that we really thought were going to do well and are not.
Yep, and I also want to note, too, Nashville is incredibly hot right now.
Yeah.
It's going to be a dogfight between Nashville and Winnipeg for the most part. As long as both teams play the way they are. Winnipeg's 6-3-1 in their last 10, but Nashville is 8-1-1 in their last 10.
Yeah,
they've won 3 in a row.
Yep.
And they are rolling. Boston went in there, and Nashville, even though it was a 5-3 game, the Bruins had it to 4-3 at one point. Bruins were, in all realistic, they were really not in that game. Nashville controlled that game from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
So Nashville is playing extremely well right now in terms of just overall play. And St. Louis is hanging in there too. I mean, there's only 1 point separating those 3 teams in the Central.
Right.
So those 3 teams are rolling. You've got LA again continuing to or have turned things around because they were off to a white hot start at the beginning of the year, and then they started sputtering a little bit. It wasn't, maybe 2 podcasts ago we were talking about, here comes LA. They're coming back down to earth. Well, they've gotten things turned back around, and they're 7-2-1 in their last 10. 6 in a row they've won.
Yep.
And
Marion Gabbert scoring goal number 400, I believe it was last night.
Yep.
So a lot of stuff happened.
Vegas is playing well again.
Vegas, unbelievable.
With Vegas though, it seems to be. It depends on whether. And we were joking about it in the Monday Night League that I play in. We were joking that Vegas probably has a advantage that other teams don't have in that hockey players are competitive by nature, particularly at that level.
Right.
And competitive people in general love to play games. They play cards on the plane. They play, video games against each other, like this. Well, you go to a place like Vegas where it's the casinos and the gaming and everything else. Guys like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The guys that play hockey. So,
So
Vegas has that built-in home advantage where the other teams that come into town are going to want to take in some of that I don't know what you want to call it, scenery, or take in some of that Vegas atmosphere.
Yep.
And I think it's causing a problem because if you look at the home and road record for Vegas, they're 11-2 at home.
Yeah.
They're 6-7-1 on the road. So Vegas is playing kind of like we expected them to on the road, but what's taken them so far this season is how well they're playing at home. They're practically unbeatable at home. Only two losses all season at home. So if this continues, I don't know. I'm thinking Vegas is going to make the playoffs this year. I just don't see it happening or see them falling.
Yeah,
every time we think they're going to fall, they have a homestand of 4 or 5 games and they take 8 out of 10 points out of that homestand.
It is shocking. It really is shocking.
So
I see Vancouver falling. I think I can make that. And I see and I see here's another thing, Wayne. When you're talking about the Western Conference, when the Anaheim Ducks get healthy, I think you're going to see them make the playoffs. They are a banged up team.
They've had a lot of injury issues.
But when they get healthy, I think you're going to see them. I really do believe Anaheim is going to factor into this. What that does to Vegas, I don't know, but I think they're gonna make some noise.
Yep.
When they get healthy. Other than that, I'm shocked by the performance of Vegas. I don't know how to. They obviously picked a better team than we thought.
Yeah.
Jonathan Marchessault I thought he was going to do well, but that team is really, really doing well.
Well, they essentially picked a lot of guys, and this is what I'm hearing through the grapevine is they picked a lot of guys that are good locker room guys, good team guys, guys with grit, guys with hustle, guys that are known to be grinders. Guys that are scrappers, those type of players.
Yeah.
That's a team full of scrappers. And, when you're almost as good talent-wise as the next guy on the other team, a lot of times the difference that separates one of these guys is how much do they want it. And right now, Vegas is still playing like they really, really want it. So as long as that continues, whether they can keep it up for 82 games is yet to be seen. But for right now, it's working for them, and they're right there in the thick of things. Now, on the downside of things, a couple of things that jumped out to me, like you alluded to, was Chicago's play.
Yep.
They're 4-3-3 in their last 10. They've lost 2 in a row. They just, for some reason, they just have stopped playing as well as they had. Now, I had picked earlier in the season that this year was going to be a bit of a struggle for Chicago. I still fully expected them to make the playoffs. I still do fully expect them to make the playoffs, but they're not going to roll through the regular season like they have for the last how many years that they've been going. It's going to be a struggle for them, and right now it's starting to show a little bit there. So. And the other one I wanted to talk about, too, was Edmonton. We picked them to be very high. There's a lot of experts out there who picked them to go to the Stanley Cup final. I think I did as well.
I believe I did as well.
And I was listening to a podcast today with they had Louis DeBrusque on, who's one of the analysts for the Edmonton Oilers, and he said essentially the problem with Edmonton is there's no passion, there's no they're lacking what Vegas has.
Right.
The will to win, the will to push through adversity, there's just no push there with Edmonton. They're just a team full of passengers. Of course, Connor McDavid's doing his thing. He's still up there in the scoring, but beyond him, other teams are basically focusing on shutting down McDavid and making the rest of the team beat him, and the rest of the team is just turned out to be a bunch of passengers for the most part. I mean, there are exceptions to that, but
well, and that strikes me too, because they were a passionate team last year.
Yeah,
and I'm wondering what happened. And maybe they'll get it back. I'm not saying that they're definitely not out of it at this point as we talk, but it's turning that way.
They've got to get things going. I mean, they're sitting in that. I almost said last place, because obviously Arizona's in last place, but and Arizona's so far behind. But Arizona's starting to climb. I mean, they're only 5 points behind the Oilers. But the Oilers are now 6 points out of that last playoff spot, with almost the entire Western Conference ahead of them.
Right.
So they've got to leapfrog a lot of teams. So the Oilers are going to have to. They still can get back in this thing, but if they're going to do it, they better get going, because
I agree.
They're in trouble. So they've got to turn things around quickly. And the only thing that's saving them right now is the parity that's going on around the league. There's beyond Vegas, LA, St. Louis, Winnipeg, and Nashville, everybody else in the Western Conference is struggling right around the 500 mark as well. So it's going to be a dogfight for those last few playoff spots.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, let's talk about some of the let's move on to transactions. I only saw one this week that was worth noting. It was a trade. Forward Scott Wilson was acquired by the Buffalo Sabres in a trade with the Detroit Red Wings on Monday for a 5th-round pick in the 2019 NHL Draft. Wilson, who's 25, has no points. He has 13 shots on goal and is a -3 in 20 games this season. He played 3 games with the Penguins before he was traded to Detroit on October 21st, along with a 3rd-round pick in the 2018 NHL Draft for forward Riley Sheehan and a 5th-round pick in the 2018 draft. Selected by the Penguins in the 7th round, the 2011 NHL Draft, Wilson has 32 points in 123 regular season games and 6 points in 23 Stanley Cup playoff games. And in a related move, the Sabres also placed forward Matt Moulson on waivers on Friday. If Moulson, who has no points in 14 games, is unclaimed by noon Eastern, on Tuesday he'd be assigned to Rochester, the American Hockey League. And in fact, I don't believe he was claimed. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
no, and that's news to me. But I'd not heard anything. I listened to a couple of radio programs today. I haven't heard anything about Matt Moulson. So
yeah. Well, this trade happened late last week, probably a day or so after we recorded last week. So this one's pretty old news at this point.
Yeah.
All right, that's the only one that I saw, other than the massive amounts of players going to and from their American Hockey League.
Right. I have not heard of another trade, Wayne, this week. So,
all right. Well, let's move on to injuries then.
Yep.
And there were quite a few of them. Let's start with Roberto Luongo, goaltender of the Florida Panthers. He'll be out for several weeks with a lower body injury, Coach Bob Boner said on Wednesday. Whether that's 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, we'll see how his rehab goes, Boner said. Definitely out for a while. Obviously lower body, and it's going to be an extended period of time. Luongo was injured on Monday against the Islanders when he made a pad save with his right leg on a slap shot by Ryan Pollock at 2:31 of the second period. Luongo immediately laid on his stomach and then didn't put any weight on his right leg when he was being helped off by 2 trainers.
Yep.
Luongo left with the score tied 1-1 after making 12 saves. James Reimer made 16 saves in relief in the 5-4 shootout loss. Luongo had hip labrum surgery in May 2016 and missed the final 6 weeks of last season with hip problems. But Boner said this injury is not related to those issues. He said, it's not the hip, I can tell you that. When he went down, everybody was worried about that. Luongo was out almost 8 weeks, missing 24 games with a groin injury during the 2008-2009 season when he was with the Vancouver Canucks. Reimer is 4-6-3 this season with a 3.67 goals against average and .892 save percentage. He started 6 consecutive games from October 21st to November 2nd when Luongo was out with a hand injury. The Panthers recalled goaltender Harry Sateri from Springfield of the American Hockey League on Wednesday, and Boner didn't rule out the possibility of acquiring another goaltender. Looks like groin to me.
That's exactly what it looked like to me. And I saw the injury, saw him helped off the ice. It looked like a groin injury. That's what it looked like. And he's up there. You know,
he's 38.
Yep.
He's 38.
39.
The first thought when I saw this go down and how they're talking, multiple weeks, is this might be it for him at his age.
Yep. If it's a bad enough groin, it could very well be.
Yep. Groin injuries in particular for goalies are very, very difficult to come back from because playing goal, particularly the style of goaltending that's played today with that, butterfly style or whatever they call the butterfly style, where you're getting down and you're spreading your legs out to cover, basically using your pads and your legs to cover the entire lower part of the net. Mm-hmm. That's hard on the groin.
Yep.
And goalies are very susceptible to groin injuries because of how they got to be yoga experts. I think they got to be practical gymnasts to cover the net. The way they do the splits down there. So
Jillian Michaels.
Yeah, right. So this one looks like it could, and if it doesn't put him out for the rest of this year, they're not saying that, and it by any stretch that it's going to be the rest of this year. But it just seems to me that at Luongo's age, a major groin injury like this could be it for him.
Right.
And I hope Florida has, for the sake of their fans, I hope Florida has a good prospect in net.
Yeah, really. Luongo is up there. 38 is old for a goalie.
Yep.
Only the good ones, and he is a good one, get up there to 40 years old. That's a gift.
Yeah, he's fourth all time in wins.
Yep.
So despite playing for some bad teams.
If you look at goaltender stats, and I look at him quite a bit actually, he's played a tremendous number of games. He's coming up on 1,000 games.
Yep.
Only 2 other goaltenders have played 1,000 games in their NHL careers.
Yep. Yeah, that's rare for goalies to play that many games.
He has had exceptional number of games played to win his 450 or 60 games or whatever he's won.
Yep.
He's lost nearly as many as he's won. To be honest with you, he's lost well over 300 games. So he's had a lot of starts, and like I said, there's only 2 other goalies that played 1,000 games. He's way up there. So and then again, you never know. He could come back and play 2 or 3 years. Who knows? But
yep, for real.
Yep.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next one, and it's yet another goalie. Dallas Stars goalie Ben Bishop is day-to-day with a sore back and will miss their game against the St. Louis Blues on Thursday. That's tonight, of course. It's hoped that Bishop will be able to return when Dallas hosts the Vegas Golden Knights on Saturday. Stars coach Ken Hitchcock said backup goaltender Kari Lehtinen will start against the Blues. The Stars will recall a goaltender from Texas to the American Hockey League to back up Lehtinen, likely Landon Bowe or Mike McKenna, Hitchcock said. This one looks like a pretty minor injury day-to-day. He should be back fairly quickly. So
agreed.
Calgary Flames forward Chris Versteeg will have hip surgery on Monday and is out indefinitely. Versteeg was placed on injury reserve on Wednesday after missing 2 games with the injury, which occurred on November 24th against the Dallas Stars. Versteeg has 8 points in 22 games so far this season and was averaging 13.08 of ice time per game, including 3:15 on the power play, which ranks 3rd among Flames forwards behind Sean Monahan and Johnny Gaudreau. Versteeg had hip surgery back in May of 2012 after playing that season for the Panthers. He played 10 games the following season. So it looks like a continuation of a past injury, although that was 5 years ago.
Right.
But to have 2 hip surgeries in 5 years seems to be a chronic problem there.
Yeah.
And this one may, out indefinitely, hip surgery, this may be the end of his career.
Yep.
He's not a guy that teams build their team around. So
right, he's a journeyman.
Yep.
He signs 1 and 2 year contracts.
Yep.
So it very well could be career ending, or at least something where he's got to go down to the minors and try and fight his way back up.
He is only 31 years old, so he has that going for him. He's got a few years left in him, but we'll see. We'll see how he recovers. All right, next one, Adam Larsson, defenseman, was placed on injury reserve by the Edmonton Oilers on Friday because of an upper body injury. Larsson did not play in a 6-4 loss to the Toronto Maple Leafs on Thursday because of the injury. Larsson last played in a 3-2 overtime win against the Coyotes last Tuesday. He can return against the Flyers on Wednesday. Larsson, who's 25, has 4 points in 25 games this season, is second on the Oilers in ice time per game at 22.52. He leads the NHL with 90 hits and has 52 blocked shots. This is a big loss for the Oilers.
Yes, it is.
He's one of their better defensemen, and stay-at-home guy. The 4 points in 25 games. This is a guy that does a lot more for that team than just put points on the board.
That's
that's very deceiving.
Yep.
He's the guy that came over in the Taylor Hall trade. So if that goes to show how important he is.
He is, and both guys are living up to the billing now on that trade. Last year it was just Larsson. Taylor Hall he's having a great year, but last year that was not the case.
Yeah.
But Larsson came over and really fit in well in Edmonton, and that, you're right, Wayne. That's a tough loss for them.
Hang on, I'm hearing breaking news. Let's look at the breaking news here. I just saw breaking news with the NHL. We're bringing to you live breaking news about the Carolina Hurricanes. You probably don't even have privy to this. All right, I'm going to read this article from NHL.com. Let's throw it in here.
A new buyer, I heard.
Oh, you did hear this?
I did hear this today.
Yeah, it came in about an hour ago. So, okay. So, out of Raleigh, Don Waddell, president of Gale Force and Entertainment Today, announced that Dallas entrepreneur and philanthropist Tom Dundon has signed an agreement to purchase a majority stake in the Carolina Hurricanes. Pending league approval and the finalization of the sale, Dundon will take control of all team operations. Let's see. Dundon said, I'm thrilled to continue to build upon what Peter Karmanos started in Raleigh. The Hurricanes are a team on the rise, and I believe we have an opportunity to take the franchise to the next level. I'm ready to get to work. He's the chairman and managing partner of Dundon Capital Partners, a Dallas-based private investment firm. His investment activities have spanned to entertainment, healthcare, real estate, hospitality, technology, automotive, and financial services sectors. He's the majority owner of the Employer Direct Healthcare and serves as the co-chairman of Top Golf. Oh, I've seen those stores. He and his wife, Verushka, have 5 children and reside in Dallas. Peter Karmanos Jr., who originally purchased the franchise in 1994, will maintain an equity stake in the team. 1997, Karmanos relocated the team to North Carolina, where it captured 3 division titles, 2 conference titles, and the 2006 Stanley Cup. In 2015, Karmanos was inducted to the Hockey Hall of Fame in the category of builder in recognition of more than 4 decades of achievements, contributions to the sport. So it looks like Karmanos stays on as a minority owner, but Dundon will be the primary owner going forward.
Right. And lost in this, who was the guy again who originally signed the letter?
Greenberg. Yeah.
What is the Texas Rangers guy?
Yeah.
I wonder what happened to him and what.
Apparently, the stories that I saw, he wasn't able to come up with the money to buy the team because he was going to be putting some of his money in it, but he was going to get together a group of investors, and he had a hard time getting that. So it looks like the Carolina Hurricanes are finally heading for a conclusion to this owner madness.
Right.
And I can attest that from some of the fans that I've talked to here in the area, I personally believe that a lot of the attendance issues that the Carolina Hurricanes are having are due to the fact that they don't agree with the way Karmanos has been running the team in the last several years, particularly in terms of, the term budget team has always been thrown about. That was a Jim Rutherford thing when he was the GM here, would say, yeah, the current Canes are a budget team. They're a budget team. We can't spend to the cap. We have a budget which is lower than that we have to maintain. And I think using that term a lot ultimately cost Rutherford his job. Yes, he voluntarily left. Yes, he said he left. But if you put 2 and 2 together, it looks like he was forced out. I still believe that. But anyway, but yeah, there's a lot of fans that are just, you mentioned Karmanos, and there's more often than not, particularly in the last 5 years or so, when you mention Peter Karmanos' name, you're not going to get a very positive reaction from a Carolina Hurricane fan. So I think there's a silent majority of Carolina fans that have decided that they're just not going to give that team or the owner any more of their money until we have a new owner in place. So now, once this is finalized, if my theory is correct, you're going to see a boost in attendance once the sale goes through, because now they will be working on getting a winning team back on the ice. And quite frankly, Carolina is one of those markets that needs to have a winning product in order to bring in the fans. And if comes right down to it, every team needs to have a winning product on the ice in order to fill the seats. Because even the Boston Bruins and the Chicago Blackhawks have had periods in the not so distant past where they weren't selling out their building every night. Right. Because they weren't putting a good, back in the mid 90s when the Bruins were well, they finished in the bottom of the league one year. That was the year that they ended up with Joe Thornton with the first overall pick. They earned that pick. That wasn't somebody else's pick that they were using. Right. They earned that pick by finishing dead last in the league the prior year. And if I remember right, the attendance that season was not very good. They weren't selling out the building, and that's not even a very big building. Right now, the Bruins are 19th in attendance in the league. But if you look at the average attendance, it's 17,565, which is a sellout. That's the capacity of that building. So the best the Bruins can do is 19th in their building. And the Chicago Blackhawks is another example. Before they got Kane and Taves, and before Mr. Wirtz died when he owned the team, of course his son has it now, but the father, that building sat half empty when the Blackhawks were horrible. And that's 2 original 6 teams. So if they can't do it, you can't expect Carolina to do it. And, Florida is also struggling, and Arizona is struggling. And, the teams at the bottom of the standing are we've been over this a million times. We don't need to go on about it. But anyway, good news for the Carolina Hurricanes. And this new owner, Dundon, has already been on record saying that he's not planning on moving the team. So
yes. And quite frankly, if he was, he wouldn't. The NHL is not going to go through that. They're not going to do that.
Well, the NHL doesn't want
You're a buyer and you're going in to buy a team. They're just, if your intent is to move the team, they will find that out.
Yep.
And the ownership will be strict. It's not going to, they're not going to allow that.
And just to show you how committed the Canes are on staying in this area. And I know it has, this thing is not going to, guarantee that they stay in the area by any stretch. But the Carolina Hurricanes have this season-long promotion that they've got going on that ends somewhere, I think in February or March. I think in March. I don't know if you saw the commercials that are being played locally here, but they've got a contest where they're going to be giving one fan a 10-year season ticket package.
Yeah.
To Hurricanes. 10-year full season ticket package with parking. So if they're going out there advertising, hey, we're going to give you a 10-year season ticket package, well, they're planning on staying around for a while.
Yeah.
So sorry, people of Quebec City. Sorry, people of Seattle. Sorry, people of Houston. I think you may want to, at least for the time being, find another place.
Get your own team.
Go get your own damn team. Right. Yeah. Leave ours alone.
Yeah, that's right. Do it the way it's normally done.
Yeah. All right, let's get back to what we were doing. Where were we before my attention got drawn elsewhere?
I think we were to Vancouver Canucks center Bo. Maybe am I?
No, we haven't talked about Corey Crawford yet. We just finished with Adam Larson. So, another goaltender, Chicago Blackhawks. Corey Crawford was placed on injury reserve on Friday because of an undisclosed injury. Crawford, who made 31 saves in a 4-3 overtime loss to the Stars on Thursday, will miss at least the next 3 games and is eligible to return against the Buffalo Sabres on December 8th. In 21 games this season, Crawford is 11-7-2 among NHL goaltenders to play at least 10 games. He's 4th with a .930 save percentage and 6th with a .229 goals against average. Anton Forsberg will likely start against the Stars. Forsberg is a 1-2-2 with a 3.67 goals against average and .904 save percentage in 7 games this season. Goaltender J.F. Berube was recalled from Rockford of the American Hockey League to take that empty spot in the roster.
Rockford Ice Hogs.
In 12 AHL games, he's 6-6 with a 2.54 goals against average and .913 save percentage. And he has 21 games of NHL experience, including 14 games with the New York Islanders last season. I was going to say, I remember Berube from the Islanders last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure how long Crawford's going to be out. It says 3 games.
It doesn't really say, but the rash of goaltender injuries continues.
Yeah, but the Chicago Blackhawks, as poorly as they're playing, they need Crawford.
Yes, they do. Although Anton Forsberg has looked good in net. Is deceiving his 1-3-3 record.
Yeah,
I don't know if they won last night. I think they lost last night, as a matter of fact. But Forsberg is better than his record suggests.
Okay, yeah, I haven't had a lot of time to watch hockey in the last week, so because of this project I've got going on at home. So I haven't watched anything other than Canes and Bruins games at this point, at least for the last week. All right, let's talk about Vancouver Canucks center Bo Horvat. He'll be out up to 6 weeks because of a fractured foot. Horvat was injured with 11:10 remaining in the third period of a 3-0 win against the Hurricanes on Tuesday. The Canucks said the 22-year-old will be seen by a specialist on Thursday. That was today. Horvat has 20 points in 28 games. He's Vancouver's second leading scorer behind rookie right wing and line mate Brock Besser, who has 25 points and leads the Canucks in forwards with an average ice time of 18:36 per game. He plays in front of the net on the top power play unit and also kills penalties. The number 9 pick in the 2013 NHL draft, Horvat has 137 points in 259 games with the Canucks. He led Vancouver with 52 points in 81 games last season, the first time since 2005-2006 that someone other than someone named Sedin led the team in scoring. So, I noticed in that game that Horvat disappeared because for at least most of the second period and probably the first part of the third period, it was the Horvat and Besser show during that game.
Yeah.
It really, really was.
Yep.
So, and then all of a sudden I stopped hearing Horvat's name being called, and you only heard Besser's name after that, and then the Sedins, of course. So, but they didn't. In fact, I was only half paying attention at that point in the game because Carolina was down 3-0, and until they started coming back, I kind of was off doing other things. So, not sure when exactly that happened, but it happened about late in the second, early in the third, somewhere in that neighborhood. So, actually, it does say in the article 11:10 remaining in the third. All right, let's move on. Defenseman Justin Schultz was placed on injury reserve by the Penguins on Thursday. Schultz sustained a lower body injury against the Rangers on Tuesday. He left the game in the first period, returned in the second, and then left again after playing 3 more shifts. Schultz has 10 points in 23 games this season and is averaging 18:40 of ice time. That's a player that Pittsburgh needs.
And they really do. And I'm thinking back in the game, and I watched the entire game. I don't remember this. I don't remember. It was not vocalized heavily by the announcing crew, if at all.
Which crew were you listening to? The Rangers?
No, I listened to the, I believe it was the NBC.
It was NBC? Okay.
Yeah, and not saying they didn't say something and I missed it, but it wasn't something where they said, well, he's not going to, he played 3 shifts. They didn't bring it up more than once, if at all.
Yeah.
So, it's surprising.
Yep. Sometimes these injuries you just don't know.
Right.
All right. That's all the injuries I had. Unless you saw me miss one.
No.
Good. All right, let's move on to suspensions and fines, and there are a few of those this week.
Yes.
San Jose Sharks defenseman Brendan Dillon has been suspended for a game without pay for slashing Washington Capitals defenseman Madison Bowie during the NHL's game number 412. God, numbers are hard. In Washington on Monday, December 4th, the NHL's Department of Player Safety announced on Tuesday the incident occurred at 19:55 of the third period. Dillon was assessed a major penalty in game misconduct for slashing. Under the terms of collective bargaining agreement and based on his average annual salary, Dillon will forfeit $17,580. That is an expensive slash right there, especially with only 5 seconds left in the game.
Yeah.
Oh, what a stupid move. And I saw the play. Yeah. I saw the play. Basically, he got hit. The game was out of hand. It was like 4-1, 3-1, something like that. And Bowie checked him and then checked him pretty hard into the glass. And Dillon just automatic retaliation, just right on the wrist, whacked him right on the wrist. And it was hard because it made Bowie he did the old my hand thing. Yeah. So yeah, $17,000 slash right there. Just like that.
That's the kind of money you don't win in pinochle.
No.
That's a lot of money there.
That's a new car for you or me. Yep. But to them, it's not much, I guess.
No, they're just splitting hairs with that.
Yep. I'm sure his family's not going to be happy about it, but anyway.
Yeah.
All right. San Jose Sharks forward Joe Thornton has been fined $5,000, the maximum allowable under the collective bargaining agreement, for slashing Tampa Bay forward Tyler Johnson during NHL game number 399 in Tampa on Saturday, the 2nd of December. Yeah. The incident occurred at 19:51 of the second period. Again, another one at the very end of the period. I didn't see, or if I did see it, I don't recall it, what Thornton did there.
The only thing I know about Joe Thornton, and this does not go to the article that you just spoke about, but I'm digressing a little bit here, Wayne. They finished one of the games, and after the game, he looks like a freaking Scottish Terrier with that beard. But they finished one of the games, and they said to him, "Hey, Joe, you guys play Vegas next. Are you looking forward to that game?" And man, they put the camera right on him. He goes, "Oh, I love Las Vegas." So maybe he got carried away there. He lost some money at the gambling table there. Who knows? Got a little angry. I'm just speculating.
Yep. And there you go. There's that Vegas home ice advantage. The players go into Vegas with something other than hockey on their mind.
And pretty soon they're paying $5,000 in suspensions.
Yeah.
No, that's just but I thought I'd say that there.
Yeah. Oh, another Joe Thornton thing this week. Do you see he got in a fight this week, which is highly unusual for him? I can't remember who he fought.
I did see that. Yep.
And then, of course, after the game, they asked Joe, some questions about it. And his response basically was, I'm a big boy. I can take care of myself.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And they said, in fact, that was the one. That was it. I'm a big boy. I can take care of it. Hey, you're going to Vegas next. He's, I love Las Vegas. Yeah, that was the one, man. Yeah. Joe Thornton.
Yep, Jumbo Joe.
Jumbo.
So, yeah, interesting week for him, to say the least. All right, moving on. And the last one just came down today, right before we hit the record button. Calgary Flames forward Matthew Tkachuk has been suspended for a game without pay for unsportsmanlike conduct for NHL game number 426 in Toronto on Wednesday, December 6th. The incident occurred at 14:07 of the first period. Tkachuk is considered a repeat offender under the terms of the collective bargaining agreement, and based on his average annual salary, will forfeit $11,280. Now, did you see what happened in this one?
That one I did not see. I don't know about that one.
I did see this one.
Wow.
Okay. And of course, the repeat offender refers back just 10 games ago, where they had that scrum, and he kind of jabbed at somebody. Who was it? Who were they playing? Was it Winnipeg? Was it the Winnipeg guy who got suspended for 10 games for coming back out onto the ice after he had left the ice? It escapes me now. Anyway, he was involved in that little kerfuffle right there.
Okay, yep.
And he did something there which basically caused the guy to come back out on the ice. He poked at him, jabbed at him, whatever, face washed him, whatever he did to the guy as he's on his way off the ice. The guy came out and tried to confront him. Well, he got suspended for that. Basically being a pest, a Marchand type. Tkachuk is getting that reputation of being that type of player. Mm-hmm. The type of player that's playing right on the edge of dirty. So this incident comes along. Well, Matthew Tkachuk, a Calgary player, hit one of the it doesn't say who it was against. Toronto. Hit a Toronto player not into the bench, but against the bench. Mm-hmm. So, the Calgary player hits the Toronto guy against the bench. And, of course, the Calgary guys are all standing there on the bench. Well, while that guy was pinned against the boards, Tkachuk just reaches up with a stick and just kind of jabbed him. I wouldn't consider it a spear because it wasn't that hard. But it was that kind of a motion. It was, he took his stick and jabbed it right into the side of the player. And the player basically had his back to him. The player was facing the ice. But the fact is, he's standing on the bench, and he took a poke at a player who was on the ice at the time. And that is a big no-no in hockey, or in that league especially.
Right.
I mean, when you're on the bench, you don't involve yourself in the play until you're on the ice. And that's the reason that the NHL, it was very subtle. In fact, most the announcers who were calling the game completely missed it, and they only saw it because the NHL brought it up. So, brought it up by suspending him. But this is the second single game suspension that Tkachuk has had in the last. The last one was 10 days ago. So in the last couple of weeks. So Tkachuk's got a little bit of a nasty edge to his game.
Yeah.
Something I'm used to from being a Bruins fan and watching Marchand every game, but he's drawing a lot of comparisons to Marchand. So, and the thing is with Tkachuk, he's a good player. He doesn't need to do that stuff.
Right.
But
I'm gonna say I'm gonna stick up for Brad Marchand again. He's not as tall as other players. He's a smaller guy, and if he is provoked, he's gonna respond. And I don't care if they suspend him for 15 games.
Yep.
He is not going to let that happen. That's just how he is.
And Tkachuk is that same kind of guy. Tkachuk is very competitive.
Yep.
Like Marchand. They hate to lose, both of them. And they're willing to do what it takes to win. Yep. So Tkachuk is earning that reputation very quickly in his young career. He's only played, this is like his second or third year or something like that. So it's probably something that Tkachuk, as he gets better and better, becomes more important to his team, because he's a very important piece of the Calgary Flames.
Oh, absolutely.
And now they're losing him for a second time for a game suspension. He's got to clean his act up, because Calgary needs him. They're in the fight of their life for a playoff spot. So. Okay, well, that is all I have for suspensions and fines. So
that's all I know of. I didn't even know about the Matthew Tkachuk one, so very good there.
All right. Now going on to other stories that kind of piqued our interest for the week. And first one I've got is kind of a bit of a comedy issue. Seems like picking on Phil Kessel has become a thing, not only with the Pittsburgh Penguins, but with everyone in the hockey world. I don't know what Phil Kessel did to draw this kind of attention, but I found an article this week on NHL.com that the Hockey Hall of Fame is displaying a Phil Kessel Team USA jersey from the 2008 World Championship team. But it's on display at the Hockey Hall of Fame, and of course there's a sign attached to it explaining its significance. And this is what the sign reads. USA Vintage Style Jersey was worn by number 8, Amanda Kessel's brother, during the 2008 IIHF World Championship held in Halifax, Nova Scotia. They didn't even mention Phil Kessel's name. This is Amanda Kessel's brother. Number 8. So the article reads, messing with Phil Kessel is so much fun. Even the Hockey Hall of Fame is getting in on the action. Of course, you had that story a couple weeks ago with the Thriller shirt, right?
That's right. That's right.
Phil the Thriller, yeah.
Now that was funny, but I'm going to stand. Phil Kessel's having a great year, Wayne. So yeah. All kidding aside.
Seems like everybody wants to make fun of him, even the Hockey Hall of Fame. Yeah. So it says we've seen Evgeny Malkin have fun with Kessel. Pittsburgh Penguins teammate Ryan Reeves has taken to tweaking Kessel to a new level. And then Hockey Hall of Fame displayed one of the Penguin Stars' United States jerseys from the 2008 IIHF World Championship, and they never mention his name. The display card only refers to Amanda Kessel's brother. Now, Amanda Kessel is, of course, one of the most dominant women's hockey players in the game, a forward for the Metropolitan Riveters of the National Women's Hockey League. She has also won gold twice at the Women's World Championship and was part of the silver medal winning United States team at the 2004 Olympics in Sochi. And, of course, Phil Kessel is, of course, now a 2-time Stanley Cup champion. But, hey, if you can point out to Sidney Crosby about his awesome hockey-playing sister, you can also do it to Phil Kessel.
That's right.
So
that's right.
This is kind of a funny story that I saw.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking forward to the next Phil Kessel. I don't know why everyone's picking on him, but I think it's awesome. All right. Ottawa Senators defenseman Erik Karlsson, a 2-time Norris Trophy winner, said he will not entertain a hometown discount when it comes to time to negotiate his next contract, according to the Ottawa Citizen. Karlsson, who's eligible to become an unrestricted free agent on July 1st, 2019, spoke about his contract situation on Thursday. That was last Thursday. After practice in New York. When I go to market, I'm going to get what I'm worth, and it's going to be no less no matter where I'm going, the 27-year-old said. Karlsson is in the 6th season of a 7-year contract worth $45.5 million, an average annual value of $6.5 million. He and the Senators can begin to negotiate a new contract on July 1st of 2018. If Karlsson doesn't sign a contract before the 18-19 season, concerns that he could leave as an unrestricted free agent could cause the Senators to entertain the idea of trading him instead of losing him for nothing. Karlsson could earn more than $10 million per season in a long-term contract. Shea Weber of the Canadiens is the highest-paid defenseman right now at $12 million in salary and signing bonuses this season, the 6th of his 14-year contract he signed with the Predators in 2012. According to CapFriendly.com. However, his salary cap charge is $7.857. Predators defenseman PK Subban, who will make $11 million this season, has a $9 million salary cap charge, the highest defenseman in the league. Karlsson said he's not looking to change teams, but that he wants fair market value for his skills. I like it here. I'm comfortable here. I've been here my whole career, said Karlsson, who was taken by the Senators in the first round of the 2008 NHL draft. It's something that I've invested all my time in and something I would like to see all the way through. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, if it's not the right fit and it's not going to work out business-wise, then you're going to have to look elsewhere because that's what owners are going to do as well. So it looks like the Rangers are going to be getting Erik Karlsson here pretty soon.
Oh, yeah. I tell you what, God, would that be something?
Boy, if he hits the open market.
I can see Ottawa is going to have difficulty, but then I can also see that they're going to pony up the money. I really think they will, because if they lose Erik Karlsson, there goes the Ottawa Senators. That is not a loss they can come back from.
No, and what can you possibly get in return for Erik Karlsson that would be equivalent? I mean, really?
Yeah, they can't trade him. You're right. They're not going to trade. I mean, maybe I could see him.
It would have to be
call the Kings and see if they're interested in trading Drew Doughty. I bet you they're not.
It would have to be Drew Doughty plus picks and players.
Probably so.
There isn't a player there. I don't see a player in the league 1-for-1 that would be a fair trade for Erik Karlsson. And I'm including guys like
Duncan Keith.
Yeah.
He's definitely in the top 5.
Brent Burns.
You might get a straight up trade there.
Well, no, I don't see it because Brent Burns is 4 years older than Karlsson.
Yeah.
Brent Burns is 31, so I just don't see what you can get in return for Karlsson. In a trade,
they are going to have to pay the money, and they're going to have to pay him the most money of anybody in the NHL at a defenseman's position.
He's clearly looking to be the highest paid defenseman in the league.
Absolutely, and deserves it.
Yep,
deserves it. So, and Wayne, we talked about it before. It's a global sport. Hockey's a global sport now. If you took the top 5 players in the world, Erik Karlsson's going to be in that list. They're going to have to pay him. They have to pay him the money. If they don't, Ottawa is going to they'll go down like a deck of cards.
And along with this article, I had heard too this week. Is it Drew Doughty? His contract is up at that same time. There's another premier defenseman in the league, and I just heard scuttlebutt, through podcasts and radio and whatnot that Drew Doughty will also be a UFA at the end of the 2018-19 season.
Yeah, he's going to sign too.
And I believe I'd also heard that those two have been in communication with each other. Can you imagine those two ending up on the same team?
Yeah.
I don't think it can happen. I really don't think one team can afford to put
$24 million out.
They're gonna they're gonna have to give Karlsson 12 at least. Yep. I don't know if Karlsson's looking to be the highest paid player, but he's certainly looking to be the highest paid defenseman. So they're gonna have to go higher than
Shea Weber,
PK, who's at $9 million a year. So they're gonna have to go 10 plus with Karlsson, and Drew Doughty's gonna command close to that, probably 9 plus. I mean, I think your first number is probably close to right, 24 for the two of them. Now, what team in their right mind would put $24 million out for 2 players and expect to continue to compete, knowing that a third of your cap space is going to 2 guys?
The Ottawa one, to me, Wayne, is a no-brainer. Now, I can see them riding out this contract as long as they can because, of course, the money is lower now. But, when it comes to the end of this season, they're going to ramp up the talks to Karlsson big time. They know if they don't come up with the money and pay him, I go out on a limb. I think he's going to get $10.5 million, may even get $11 million a year. If they don't come up with that money, the Ottawa Senators are going to go down the tubes.
Yeah, and the question in Ottawa too is, can they afford it? Because they've been a team that's been struggling with at the attendance and money wise too. There's some smoke there in Ottawa with the financial issues of that team. So question there is, they probably will have the cap space, but can they really afford it? I think that's a team that's like the Carolina Hurricanes in the past have been playing with a bit of a budget.
Right.
They're playing at below the salary cap. So can the Ottawa Senators afford to put their team at or very close to the cap? Because you add a $10-12 million player, you're going to have no choice but to spend close to the cap to keep your team competitive.
Right. Totally different situation in LA, Wayne, because if the Kings win the Stanley Cup, they're going to have to pay Drew Doughty. But can they afford to? There's cap issues there now. And so you got a different story there. In the case of the Ottawa Senators, they got the money. Budget team or no budget team. And if they don't pay him, it's mutiny on, it's the ownership, everybody will suffer.
Yep.
The fans are going to revolt.
Yeah. Well, the difference between Ottawa and LA is LA is a big enough market and they don't even have to think twice about spending right to the cap.
Right.
So with them, it's a matter of whether or not they have the cap space to to fit him in.
Yep.
They'll probably have to move a player or two out or buy out a couple of overpaid players in order to make that happen. But I think with LA, they're going to make it happen.
Yeah.
But I see Karlsson leaving. I see one way or another, I see Karlsson leaving the Ottawa Senators. When he's making comments like this, that tells me that
and it is. You're right.
He's going to be in a different jersey in 2 years.
If they come up with if they're going to pay him the money, Wayne, then he's, I guess it's the type of thing where he could hold him hostage, but that means he doesn't want to stay in Ottawa.
Yeah. This article says he's come right out and said he's given it the old he's saying what he has to say to keep the Ottawa fans happy. Yeah, I want to stay here, but I have to go do what's right for my business, which for a pro athlete is the right way to think. Their personal brand is their personal business, and they got to do what's right for that. But yeah, it's going to be fun to watch.
Yep.
I would be very interested to see, and if Karlsson ends up in a different jersey, I hope it's somewhere in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Bruins don't have to play against him 15 times a year.
You never know.
Yeah,
Henrik Lundqvist may really say some words of who knows. Come have pickled herring here in New York with me.
Well, I say, yeah, right. I'd say New York only because the Rangers always seem to be in on the conversation when it comes to big name, big money, unrestricted free agents. The Rangers are always in the thick of getting those guys. Yeah. So that's why I made that joke earlier. Well, it looks like Karlsson's coming to New York.
Yeah, that's a pipe dream. I don't think that'll happen, but
because I know for a fact with the Bruins ownership the way they are with a Karlsson who's thinking only money at this point, because that's the way that article is going to come across to them. He doesn't care about anything but the money. Bruins are going to steer way clear of that because the Bruins want guys who are willing to take the hometown discount in order to have a good team.
Yeah,
it seems like Karlsson's not that guy. So
if he's going to leave, I could see him with a team like Dallas, Minnesota, and I don't know these teams' cap issues, but
yeah.
Yeah, I could just see that, Central Division team or something. Maybe the New York Islanders or something. I don't know, but I just don't see,
Yep. Okay. Well, anyway, it's something we'll be keeping an eye on.
Very interesting. That's right.
Something to keep an eye on. All right. Well, the next one I want to talk about is I saw in the hockey news that the Seattle City Council approved a $600 million renovation of Key Arena. And with that, might be only a matter of time before the NHL ends up with a team there. So Seattle is making a very, very strong push to get an NHL team in that city. And it doesn't have to be a relocating team either.
Right.
Right now, there's a little bit of inequity in terms of the number of teams in each conference. Of course, the Western Conference has only 15, the Eastern Conference 16.
Right.
So having Seattle adding a team, and everyone is pretty much, the NHL hasn't come right out and said it yet. They haven't by any stretch admitted to it, but the NHL is heading for a 32-team league.
Right.
One way or another, it's going to happen. May not happen for another 2 or 3 years, but that 32nd team is on the way.
Right.
We just don't know when and where it's going to be. But Seattle is making a very strong push on that. I'm not going to go into details of the arena issues. But bottom line is they are doing a complete head-to-toe renovation of Key Arena, which is the arena where the old Seattle Supersonics played in, the NBA, before they moved out. But the owner of that arena and the investment group anyway that's involved there, they're trying to get both the NBA and the NHL to come to that city.
Yep. Real quickly on that one, it can be easily made to work in the Western Conference by keeping Seattle in the Pacific and then moving a Pacific team into the Central, such as Arizona.
Yep.
Or you want to split up the Alberta teams, you could do it there. But
I don't see that happening.
I don't see that happening either. But Arizona could move into the Central, and even though they're time-wise they're not there, but that's something they could do to accommodate the Seattle franchise.
Yeah, but it's looking like the earliest that an NHL team could play in that arena is the 2020-2021 season. That's in terms of when the construction is done and the arena is ready to go. That's the first season that they could possibly start play. So we got a ways to go, but it'll be something to keep an eye on. All right, let's talk Olympics. I've got an article that I pulled from ESPN, and they talk about the International Olympic Committee's executive board, led by President Thomas Bach, took the unprecedented step on Tuesday of suspending the Russian Olympic Committee for systematic manipulation of the anti-doping rules and system, but it will permit individual athletes to compete in the upcoming Pyeongchang Winter Games if they meet standards determined by an IOC-convened panel. The ruling comes after months of investigations that uncovered voluminous evidence of corruption and sabotage leading up to and during Sochi's 2014 games, implicating every segment of Russia's Olympic sports industry: athletes, team officials, scientists, anti-doping administrators, and government authorities. With the Pyeongchang Winter Games less than 10 weeks away, the IOC will now deal with the question of which Russian athletes should be eligible. It's partial replay of the events preceding Rio de Janeiro's 2016 Summer Games, when the IOC also faced pressure to exclude Russia. This time around, there was far stronger and more comprehensive evidence on the table, making the last-minute nature of the IOC's decision more glaring. Anti-doping agencies from 37 countries, including the U.S., called for a blanket ban on the Russian Olympic Committee, citing the scope and detail of the conspiracy and the odds that few prominent actors in Russian sport could have been unaware of it. That group did advocate that a path should be created for clean athletes to make their cases and offered to help provide criteria for that process. The news has several major consequences. The foremost one, whether or not a Russian team competes in the hockey tournament, and if it does, it would do so under a neutral flag. Then there's the Continental Hockey League issue. If the Russians do participate in the hockey tournament, the majority of the team's players will be from the KHL, since the NHL is not participating in the games this year. The KHL already has an Olympic break built into their schedule from January 29th to February 26th, but Pavel Lesnikov of Sovietsky Sport told ESPN last month that the KHL would eliminate the break in its schedule if Russia was banned. If Russia is not admitted to the Olympics for doping reasons, the KHL will cancel the pause window in 1 month, which is now in the regular season. He said the KHL board member Alexander Medvedev told Russian news agency TASS last month that contracted players won't be able to go anywhere should the IOC ban Russia from the 2018 games. There was also talk that the Russian parliament was preparing a bill that would ban KHL players from leaving for the games. That decision would send ripples through several countries. There are 15 KHL players on the Team Canada roster for the Karjala Cup tournament, which is an Olympic showcase. There were 7 KHL players on the Team USA roster for the upcoming Deutschland Cup tournament. And then I've included links in the show notes to other articles that give you even more detail than I just did on this. So what a mess this whole Olympic thing is turning out to be.
Yes, it is. And quite frankly, Wayne, with the situation in world politics and the way stuff's going right now, it's not a safe place to have the Olympics. Of course, nothing may happen. And I keep thinking of Sarajevo and what a beautiful city that was, and look what happened. But, it's kind of, if I was an athlete and I'm over there in Pyeongchang and I'm not very far at all from North Korea, that's in the back of my mind. It's going to be in the back of people's minds.
Yeah.
You
have that issue. That's completely aside from the whole Russian thing.
Right.
You've got, North Korea's, literally miles away from Pyeongchang. I mean, it's not that far away. And, but this whole Russian thing, and, the Russians even going back to my childhood, there was always the joke about the Russian judge always scoring everybody lower than everybody else except for the Russian athletes. And, And it was going on way back then. Decades ago. The accusations of Russians cheating all through make no mistake, Russian national pride is tied more so than most other countries to how their athletes do in various sporting events, sporting competitions against the rest of the world.
Yeah.
They put a tremendous amount of pressure on their hockey players to perform at the highest levels in the world competition. For how many years did they win the gold over and over and over? Of course, that was back in the days when the Olympics were supposed to be supposedly an amateur thing before pro athletes got involved in any Olympic sports, and Olympics were reserved for supposed to be amateur athletes. And, of course, you had Russia putting their Central Army team together, which, were basically the best players that country had to offer. And they were dominating in the Olympic game because Canada and the U.S. couldn't, and Sweden and Finland, for that matter, couldn't put their best players on there because they were considered professional when the Russian ones were not. When when you look right down to it, they were in fact professional athletes.
Yeah.
They were just sponsored by their, and paid for by their own government. But anyway, a lot of politics here, the IOC. And, of course, the IOC's had their own issues with corruption and and all that. I mean, it's just a mess. It really is. So you got one corrupt organization calling out another corrupt organization. That's and the sad part of it is it's the athletes that are losing out.
Yeah.
But if the KHL players don't go, what are we going to see over there?
Yeah.
For athletes, you're going to see. I would imagine a lot of cases it's going to be. Well, I know the American Hockey League is going to allow their players to go. I've seen an article on that. They're going to allow NCAA teams are going to allow their players to go. Of course, junior teams are going to allow their players to go. I don't know what Russia's going to put together. I know they have a junior league of their own, similar to what the Canadians have. Mm-hmm. But there are some former NHL players that were looking forward to playing for Team Canada that are playing the KHL that might not be allowed. I mean, you've got some of the names that we've talked about in the past: Ben Scrivens, Wojtek Wolski, Gilbert Brule.
How about a guy playing over the KHL right now, Matt Gilroy?
Yep.
He could play for Team USA.
Yep. Mike Lundin is playing over there, a former Maine Black Bear.
Yep.
Who was playing in the NHL not long ago. Dan Sexton, Ryan Stoa are all Americans that are playing in the KHL that could have played for the Team USA.
Right.
And if the KHL decides not to go, they're not going to go.
Nigel Dawes
for Canada. Yep.
Yep.
So, yeah, not sure what's going to come of it, but we'll see. We should start seeing announcements here pretty soon of at least to getting a 40-man roster together, tryouts for the Olympics, because that tournament's just a few 10 or so weeks away. So it should be interesting. All right. I don't know what else more to say about it other than I guess we'll see.
It's something that
it's another story we'll have to continue to follow as it develops.
Get past the World Juniors, you'll probably have a better sense of what's going to happen.
Probably, yeah. Right now the World Juniors is right around the corner. There's about 3 weeks away before the World Juniors starts, and you might see some of those players. Yeah. Some of the players you're seeing in the World Juniors are probably, I wouldn't be surprised if every team puts a handful of those guys on their Olympic team.
Right.
So, all right. Well, defenseman PK Subban might see a familiar face in the opposing goal when the Predators host the Golden Knights at Bridgestone Arena on Friday. Golden Knights goaltender Malcolm Subban, PK's younger brother, could start against the Predators. If so, PK said it would be the first time the two have played against each other at any level. I thought those two had played each other in a preseason game when PK was in Montreal and Malcolm was in Boston. I could have sworn they played against each other in a preseason game. But anyway, I digress. Carl Subban, PK's and Malcolm's father, will be on hand as part of the Golden Knights' father's trip. PK is 28, has watched Malcolm's whirlwind of a season with the Golden Knights from afar. Malcolm was 23, was in training camp with the Bruins, who took him in the first round in the 2012 NHL draft, when he was placed on waivers and claimed by the Golden Knights on October 3rd. PK said playing against Malcolm for the first time may present some challenges. He said, I haven't shot on him in a while, so maybe it's part of his thing. Maybe that's part of his thing is kind of not having me shoot on him, so I don't know where to go, he said, but I'll find a way. So that'll be a game to watch.
That will be, especially if brother Jordan is sitting up in the stands watching.
I doubt that. Jordan's playing the Vancouver organization, so he'll be on the road there somewhere. But Dad will be in town watching the game for sure.
Yep.
All right, we had some awards and milestones this week. Quite a few of them, because as we turn the month or turn over the calendar, there's some monthly awards to hand out. So first and foremost, Winnipeg Jets right wing Blake Wheeler, Montreal Canadiens goaltender Carey Price, Dallas center Radek Faksa have been named the NHL's 3 stars for the week ending December 3rd. Wheeler led the NHL with 10 points, including a trio of 3-point performances in 4 games to propel the Jets to a 3-0-1 week and to the top of the Western Conference standings. Price went 4-0-0 with a 1.5 goals against and a .950 save percentage to help the Canadiens to a perfect week and extend their win streak to 5 games. Faksa registered a league-best 5 goals and a +7 rating in 4 games to power the Stars to a 4-0 week. So kudos to them. Colorado Avalanche center Nathan MacKinnon, Toronto Maple Leafs goaltender Frederik Andersen, and St. Louis Blues center Braden Shen have been named the NHL's 3 stars for the month of November. MacKinnon registered 20 points in 12 games, leading the NHL with a 1.67 points per game and a +11 rating to power the Avalanche to a 6-4-2 November. Anderson went 9-2-1 with a 2.14 and a 9.38 and 2 shutouts to guide the Leafs to a 10-4-1 November. Shen recorded 19 points in 12 games and averaged a 1.58 goals against or points per game to propel the Blues to a 7-5 November and the top of the Western Conference standings. And moving on, the Vancouver Canucks right wing Brock Besser, who led all NHL players with 11 goals in 15 games, has been named the NHL's Rookie of the Month for November. Besser edged the Islanders center Matthew Barzal and Chicago right wing Alex DeBrincat and Colorado Avalanche center Alexander Kerfoot and New Jersey Devils center Nico Hischier for the honor. Besser became the second rookie in Canucks history to register double digits in goals in one calendar month, joining Pavel Bure, who had 12 in March of '92. 20-year-old Burnsville, Minnesota native also became the first rookie to score 11 goals for NHL team in one calendar month since Nail Yakupov posted an equal number with the Oilers on April 2013. So kudos to all those guys for those honors. And then finally, for honors, Rob Blake, Chris Chelios, Daniel Alfredson, and Jere Lehtinen are among 8 people voted into the International Ice Hockey Federation Hall of Fame for 2018. This ceremony will be held in Copenhagen, Denmark during the final weekend of the 2018 World Championship, which is scheduled in May 4th through 20th. So we'll have more on that when that gets closer. Daniel Sedin became the 87th player in NHL history to reach the 1,000 points plateau when he scored the tying goal for Vancouver in a 5-3 win against the Predators at Bridgestone Arena on Thursday. Sedin, who was 2 points shy of 1,000 entering the game, had a goal and 2 assists. He has 376 goals, 625 assists in 1,251 NHL games. His brother Henrik reached the 1,000 points plateau back in January 20th. They're the only 2 players to score that many points playing for Vancouver and the only brothers to do so in NHL history. And of course, we all know about Henrik and Daniel going number 2 and number 3 overall in 1999. So, which I was amazed when they were able to pull off the trades that they had to get those 2 and 3.
Yep.
But everyone always wondered what those 2 would do separated, and we'll probably never find out because it looks like they're going to stay together no matter what.
I believe so.
Every contract they've ever signed has always been for the same term, same amount.
Yep.
So, all right, so kudos to everybody we just mentioned there. We blew through that because we're getting on here in time. So, all right, let's move on to the power ranking for the week.
The power rankings, Wayne, and it is my week.
Yep.
I did spend a little time looking at this, but I will go through it relatively quickly, starting at number 16. This is the first week where I did put some teams up in here, although they may not be in the playoff picture. And if you mathematically look online, it wouldn't probably figure that way. They're just a team that's playing well in the last 10. Starting with San Jose at 16. At number 15, I have the Vancouver Canucks. Still barely hanging on. Number 14, the Washington Capitals. Number 13, the Pittsburgh Penguins. Number 12, the New York Rangers. Number 11, the Dallas Stars. Number 10, the New York Islanders. Number 9, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Number 8, just still a shock to me every time I see it, the Vegas Golden Knights. Number 7, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Number 6, the New Jersey Devils. Number 5, the St. Louis Blues. Number 4, the Winnipeg Jets. Number 3, the Nashville Predators. Number 2, the Los Angeles Kings. And the number 1 team in the power rankings for this week, the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Can't say as I disagree with that one. That's a pretty good power ranking there. Tampa Bay is still rolling.
Tampa Bay is still rolling.
Yep. And LA's back on top. They dropped last week a little bit. But they're back up on top. And Nashville number 3. Yeah, Winnipeg 4. I can't argue against any of those. All right, good. All right, let's look ahead to this upcoming week. The Boston Bruins are at home against Arizona tonight. That game is going on right now as we speak. And they're at home again with the Islanders on the 9th. That's on Saturday. And then they go to Detroit on the 13th. So they got a bit of a gap there again. They've got 3 games this week. So, again, the Bruins being one of the fewest games played in the league, and they still only have a 3-game week. They're going to have a whole bunch of 4-game weeks coming up.
Yep. Yeah, no question.
And Carolina has 4 this week, all on the road. We talked about it earlier in the show. They're at San Jose on the 7th, at LA on the 9th, at Anaheim on the 11th, at Vegas on the 12th. So they'll be out west. So you Carolina fans are not going to get a lot of sleep coming up because they're all 10:30 games.
Yeah.
Our time.
You'll be rubbing the red out of your eyes if you're watching them.
Yep. If they can get 6 out of 8 points, it'll be a freaking miracle.
Not kidding. You're not kidding.
So, all right, the Rangers.
The Rangers play tomorrow night against the Washington Capitals in the phone booth in Washington. Then they go to the Rock, and they play the New Jersey Devils on the very next day, Saturday. And boy, do I ever want to see them beat that team. I want to see them beat New Jersey so bad. Then next, the Dallas Stars. And we play them on Monday night, followed up on Wednesday by another road game, the Ottawa Senators, which could be one of the last times we play against Erik Karlsson. So before he jumps ship and goes wherever he's going to go.
Before he goes to the Rangers,
No. I'm not saying that, Wayne, at all. I doubt very seriously that'll happen. I think
all right. All right. And, of course, there's also a bunch of other games going on around the league that are going to be very good. We've already talked about the Subban brothers playing against each other, and there's a bunch of good games this week. So, yeah, check your local listings for good games going on. All right, let's talk minor league hockey with our minor league hockey minute.
Yes.
And I've actually got a article out of Portland, Maine. And, of course, that's a little, strikes a little home to me because, I'm obviously from Maine originally. And Portland, Maine has had a hockey team for a long, long time going. I mean, way back before I was a kid. They had the Maine Mariners there, and then they were the Portland Pirates. God, for some reason it scratched my mind. And then, of course, the Portland Pirates took off, moved out west, leaving the city of Portland without an American Hockey League team for. They've had it almost every season going back, generations. Well, now the Portland, Maine arena, it's that same arena, what used to be called the Cumberland County Civic Center is now the Cross Insurance Arena, is going to have a team starting next season. Wow. They're going to be in the East Coast Hockey League, and they're going to be known, they announced earlier this month, or earlier November, that they're going to be known as the Maine Mariners. It's a name that fans voted for, so they're bringing that name back.
That's good.
The old Maine Mariners. Well, this week they unveiled their new logo, which I thought was pretty neat. Basically, it takes, you have the M, and then you have of course, it's the Maine Mariners, so you have the trident. Who's the god of the ocean?
Oh God, it starts with an A.
I can't remember. What?
Apollo. This is gonna bother me.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We're horrible when it comes to this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, Apollo? No.
Poseidon,
maybe. I don't know. Anyway, the Greek god that carries the trident there. Anyway, they take the trident, lay it on its side, so the trident actually makes it look like an E. And of course, the postal code for the state of Maine is ME, right?
Yeah.
So the trident is going through the M, and the fork of the trident is to the right of the M. So you see the ME. And that makes up the logo. So you're going to have the Maine Mariners, and the only thing that bothered me with the logo is the colors are going to be basically a marine blue and green, which my first impression was, well, they just stole the Seattle Mariners colors.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, okay. And it is Poseidon, by the way.
Poseidon. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who had the trident,
the Greek god of the ocean, right. So Poseidon's trident makes up the E, and then, of course, but the colors are going to be the blue and green of the Seattle Mariners, which I'm surprised that they're able to get away with. But anyway, they're pulling that off. So that was the big announcement this week out of Portland, Maine. The people up there are very excited to get hockey back again in Portland.
That's good.
And I'm looking forward to going to a game there someday. If I make another return trip to Maine in the wintertime. We'll see how this pond hockey thing goes.
Yeah.
Then we'll worry about future trips to see a Maine Mariners game.
Yeah.
So that was my story this week. Nothing too big.
Okay, you just had the one story.
Yeah, that's the one I'm going with. I had another one in the show notes, but it's an extension of the whole Olympics thing, where it talks about possible sources for talent for the various countries, and it just talks about how the American League is going to allow their players to go, the NCAA, all the European pro leagues. Canadian juniors, that kind of stuff. It's just an article about that, but there is a link to that in the show notes if you really want to read it. If you're curious of where Team USA and Team Canada is going to get their players.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yep.
Wayne, my minor league hockey minute is, I did both my minor league hockey minute and my picks of the week both deal with the New York Rangers this week because I've just been pumped with how they've been playing. But as with the rash of goalie injuries that have been going around, and with the fact that we reported recently on this show that Mike Keenan took Magnus Hellberg from the Hartford Wolfpack in the offseason. He is now playing overseas for the Kunlun Red Star in the KHL. The New York Rangers have suffered in the goalie department. Now, they do have Igor Shestyorkin, who, by all accounts, is the best goalie in the KHL. But playing on SKA St. Petersburg, he may never, ever play in the NHL. He doesn't have to. He's playing on the best team over there. So,
speaking of which, not to pull you away from that, but Mike Keenan was fired by the Kunlun Red Star earlier this week.
Oh, I did not know that.
That story came out on December 3rd, so just a couple days ago.
Wow.
Yep.
Did not know that.
Yep. Sportsnet out of Canada reported that he's going to he was relieved of his duties of general manager, but he's going to remain the team's head coach. I had it wrong.
Okay.
So that's what Sportsnet out of Canada, or Sportsnet, if there's anything hockey, they're gonna be all over it.
They're all over it like a cheap suit.
So he will no longer be their GM. He's just going to be the head coach, and I guess I see that as he's getting up there in age and he doesn't want to do it all.
Yeah.
So yeah, go on. Anyway, but, I just wanted to throw that in there.
The Rangers are in a position, as far as the goaltending position goes, that they need to shore up their minor leagues position, the goalie position. And in order to do that, this week, the New York Rangers have signed free agent goaltender Marek Mezenic, and signed him to the Hartford Wolfpack. Now, I know Andrew Halverson is there. Probably, more than likely, is starting. But this is another guy who is doing very well in the AHL. Played until this week with the Milwaukee Admirals. The article reads, the New York Rangers have signed free agent goaltender Marek Mezenic and signed him to the Hartford Wolfpack. Mezenic, 26, has appeared in 165 career AHL games over 4 seasons with the Milwaukee Admirals, posting in a record of 82, 60, and 19 with a 2.59 goals against average and a .909 save percentage with 11 shutouts. Last season, he tied for 4th in the league with a career-high 27 victories. Mezenic also appeared in 31 NHL games with the Nashville Predators. You may have heard of him there, going 8-13 and 4 with a 2.98 goals against average, a .895 save percentage, and 2 shutouts. Mezenic began the 2017-18 season with HC Slovan Bratislava in the KHL, appearing in 23 games. The native of Český, and I hope I say this right, Budějovice, Czech Republic.
Better than me.
Český Budějovice, Czech Republic, was originally drafted by Nashville in the 6th round in 2012. So, naturally, I'm concerned with the Rangers' situation, but also that's a guy who's obviously got a lot of AHL experience, and they're bringing him into Hartford, and that's probably going to set up a goaltender's duel there in Hartford for that starting job, if it hasn't already. And for all I know, he may have already played a game. But just good news if you're a Rangers fan, that they're bringing in more talent as that moves along as far as the goaltending position goes, and things change with the move this summer.
Yep. Well, Vegas is proof that you can never have enough goaltending.
It's so true. Very true, yeah.
So, well, good. All right, well, let's move on to some college hockey talk. And the first half of the season, or what they call in college hockey, they essentially refer to the period before Christmas as the first half, and after Christmas to the second, because most teams take a break during Christmas break, because college semester ends right before Christmas break. Anybody who's gone to college knows what it's like. And then essentially the students are gone from the school for a month. Of course, the athletes don't go for that amount of time, but the school essentially shuts down for a month, and then they start back up in January. So anyway, first half is winding down, and Maine this week, or this past week, earned a 2-2 tie and a 6-2 win against Vermont, which is a team that's, well, in terms of ties to me, of course, as you know, Steve, I grew up in Vermont, went to high school in Vermont, and then went to college in Maine, ended up staying in Maine been living there pretty much exactly as long as I lived in Vermont. So I identify myself as being a former, a native to both areas because I lived 17, 18 years in both states, both Maine and Vermont. So anyway, whenever Maine plays Vermont, it piques my interest a little bit. I watched the better part of, I missed the 2-2 tie. That was Friday night because I worked till 10. So that game was over before I even got home from work. But I did watch the entire 6-2 win last week against Vermont, and Maine played very well. Vermont's struggling this year. They're not a very good team. They're actually worse than Maine right now in the pairwise. So it was a game between two teams at the bottom of the standings. But I enjoyed it because it ended up being a 6-2 win for Vermont. But I got a lot of Facebook friends that are Vermont fans too because they went to school at UVM. I know tons of people that went to school at Vermont because of growing up over there. And anyway, so that was kind of interesting to watch that series. But that was Maine's last home games until January 16th.
Wow.
So, and it's not that they're not playing games until the 16th. Their last home games until January 16th. So it'll be a while before Maine plays a home game again, which means it'll be a while before I get to see a game because Maine streams their home games online where anybody can watch them. But the away games, it's a crapshoot whether or not you get to watch them, so because they don't automatically stream the road games. But this week, to close out the first half, Maine is at Quinnipiac for 2 games, and then they have until their next game is the 29th of December after that. So Maine takes about 2 full weeks off, almost 3 weeks off. For Christmas break. But they're currently 6-7-1 and 4-4-1 in Hockey East. So they're in a much better spot than they've been in the last few years. So that's exciting, although they still have a long ways to go before they can compete with the big boys in Hockey East. All right, now let's look at around the country at some upsets that happened over the past week or so. On Friday night, there were only 2 upsets of note. And one of them's kind of looked weird to me because it was Boston College against Boston University. Any year, just about in the past 20 years, you pick that and say, well, that must be your game of the week for the week. But Boston University is currently unranked.
Yeah.
They were top 5 to start the year. They're now... They've fallen completely out of the rankings, and they're now currently unranked. So when they went to Boston College and beat Boston College 7-4, Boston College is the number 15 ranked team in the country. That fits as an upset, so it's worth mentioning. And then the other one Friday night was Miami 2, Cornell 1. Miami's unranked, and this is Miami of Ohio, not Florida. And Cornell is the number 5 team in the country. So big upset there for Miami. On Saturday night, there were a few more upsets. Penn State beat Ohio State 4-0. Now, Penn State has been ranked for the better part of the last 2 years, but they are not currently ranked, and Ohio State is number 11. So that was a Big Ten matchup there. Number 14, Wisconsin beat number 7, Minnesota 3-2. Unranked Yale beat number 19, Union 5-3 in a mild upset there. Number 9, Providence lost to number 13, New Hampshire. That was a 1-0 game, so that one could have gone either way. And number 17, Colgate lost to the Army West Point 3-1, and that was at Army. So that was a huge upset for them because Army generally isn't very good most years. Obviously, to go to West Point, you're not a typical college student. So, and then as far as games coming up this week that have national implications, there's really only a few. This week's schedule is a little bit lighter. Next week is real light. There's only probably 20 games going on over the entire country next weekend. But this weekend is the last full weekend of schedule before everybody starts heading off for Christmas break. But number 7, Minnesota is at Ohio State, who's number 15 for 2 games. Number 4, Notre Dame is at number 12, Wisconsin for 2 games. Number 5, North Dakota is at number 2, St. Cloud State for 2 games. And I've got that as our games of the week to watch if you can get your hands on the feed for that one. And number 10, Northeastern is at number 14, Boston College. That's not 2 games. That's just Saturday night. Now, taking a look at the poll this week, starting at number 10 is Northeastern, number 9 is Providence, number 8, Minnesota State, number 7, Minnesota, number 6, Cornell, number 5, North Dakota, number 4, Notre Dame, with 1 first-place vote. And also with 1 first-place vote is number 3, Clarkson. Number 2 is St. Cloud State with 9 first-place votes. And number 1 this week with 39 first-place votes is Denver. All right, that is the end of the college hockey talk for this week. Let's move on to our picks of the week.
Very good.
And I'll let you start.
You want me to start? Okay.
Sure, why not?
I will, and I want to talk about something, again, involving the New York Rangers this week. I stuck with my team. And, Wayne, we reported before on this show about Lasker Rink. This is going back to last year. When the Calgary Flames came to town, they actually had a practice session at this particular rink. It is located in Central Park, New York.
I saw this article.
Yes. Seeing as the Rangers are getting ready for the upcoming Winter Classic, they contracted out, I guess, or reserved, or however they do it, Lasker Rink in Central Park for a practice session which took place this last Saturday. And it really was quite a thing. If you are a Rangers fan, and gosh, if I had been riding the subway and saw this, I probably would have flipped out. But the article I pulled came from the New York Post. 3 uniformed Rangers ride subway to Central Park practice. At least for a few hours Saturday afternoon, the Rangers got to be kids again. The Blue Shirts held an outdoor practice in front of a packed crowd at Lasker Rink, a hidden gym at the top of Central Park on 110th Street, as they began to prepare for the Winter Classic against the Sabres at Citi Field next month. You definitely get that taste of it. The sun in your eyes, the glare of the ice, Captain Ryan McDonough said. Just a lot of memories growing up as a little kid, getting to play outdoors with your family and the kids in your neighborhood. You just roll up to the park, and there's a great sheet of ice for you, and you play all night. Kevin Hayes, Jimmy Vesey, and Brady Shea went the extra mile on their commute to practice. Dressed in full uniform, minus the skates, but including the gloves and sticks, the roommates jumped on an Express 3 train from Madison Square Garden and arrived right at the Central Park North stop. The trio, trailed by a camera crew, took a selfie with a few surprised passengers before heading toward...
It must have been amazing.
You may, I'm going to tell you about it because I watched the video. It's really something. It was pretty funny, Hayes said. The rink was small, but it was awesome to come out here and see all the fans and all the support we get. We have a pretty set routine, so to do something different is actually exciting. The practice featured some traditional drills, but Coach Vigneault mixed it up a little bit for the crowd, too, including a 3-on-3 period and a shootout. Fans decked out in Rangers garb turned out in droves, lining up an hour before the practice began. I'm not surprised, but still you appreciate it, goalie Henrik Lundqvist said. I know the fan base here in New York is very passionate about the game. When we pulled up, I was like, yeah, of course. Some visiting teams have skated in Lasker Rink in previous years, but the Rangers never got to do it until Saturday, which I find really surprising. McDonough said he hoped that it would become an annual tradition, whether or not they were playing in the Winter Classic. Because in the most of an 82-game season with too many monotonous practices to count, the Rangers got to turn back the clock to the more innocent days when their hockey careers were just getting started. And I tell you, they have a video. You can see it on NHL.com. I know it's on the New York Rangers website of the 3 of them, Jimmy Vesey, Brady Shea, and Jimmy Hayes, who they mic'd up for this entire day, getting on the subway, kind of sticking each other because they did have their sticks with them. They get on the subway train, and you know, I think it was pretty empty when they got on. But it's an express train that takes you all the way to Central Park. They didn't stop, except maybe once. But here come these people on the train, and they're like doing a double take, you know. In fact, the one guy came on with a Henrik Lundqvist Hockey's jersey, probably headed to the practice. And here's those 3 guys sitting on the train, you know. And it must have been something else. If it had been me, I would have flipped out. I've been like, my God, it really is those guys. You know?
It's one thing to have them in, you know, plain clothes. These guys are in full uniform, full game uniform.
Full uniforms. Only thing they're wearing is sneakers. Other than that, everything is, they'd be wearing it out on the ice for the game.
Yep.
And, it really just was quite something. And, of course, Kevin Hayes loved the rink, loved the ice, would love to play his career there. It is a small rink, but it is very it's located right in the heart of Manhattan. So you have all the buildings and everything. It's really quite a sight, and really a good article and a good thing that they did. Of course, I'm really looking forward to this Winter Classic. So that was my pick of the week, Wayne. Thank you.
That was very good. I saw that story. I'm like, you know what? He's gonna pick that. So you got to talk about that.
That's right.
My pick of the week, and of course, you and I both love to find stories that highlight fans and fan activities, right?
That's right.
And one of the activities I saw, and I didn't end up using it as my pick of the week, but I did want to note that it was a group of referees based out of Washington, D.C. went to a Capitals game, and they bought about half a section. I mean, there was probably 24 of them there, all dressed in their referee jerseys. These are guys that referee probably at the same levels that I referee at, youth hockey, adult hockey, that kind of stuff. These guys all show up at a Capitals game and were cheering on the refs. They were every time the refs would make a call, they'd stand up, woo, yeah. So that was one story this week. And these guys went to a Capitals game, and they were inspired by, there was a few weeks ago, there was a smaller group that showed up, and I can't remember which city it was, but there was a small group that showed up to referee to cheer on the refs. But this group in Washington took it to a whole new level. But the article I did pick was about these two fans that the article, the title of the article is "Fans Live Hockey Dream by Seeing 7 Games in 7 Cities in 1 Week." Now, of course, you and I have kind of jokingly talked about hockey trips that we like to take in the past. And 7 games in 7 cities in 7 nights. At first when I saw that, I'm like, okay, well, they must have gone, let's see, Washington, Philly, New York, New Jersey, Islanders, that's 5, and then up to Boston, and then maybe finish in Montreal. 7 cities that are really, really close together. Well, it's not the case. They covered some miles. And here's the article. It's from Pat Pickens at the NHL.com, the staff writer there. Marc-Andre Cardinal and Benoit Marleau lived a hockey fan's dream for the past week. The two friends took in 7 games in 7 different cities from November 25th through December 2nd, racked up a ton of miles on the ground and in the air, and as an added bonus, got a puck from each game they attended. We lived in a car for practically a week, Cardinal told NHL.com, eating on the way and getting into hotels late. We didn't do much besides drive, fly, and watch some hockey games. Cardinal is a project officer for Canada Revenue Agency, and Marleau is an advisor for Caisse Desjardins, and both are from Gatineau, Quebec. They're huge fans who also love to take sports excursions together. Cardinal's an Ottawa Senators fan. Marleau is a Montreal Canadiens supporter who likes to collect hockey memorabilia. The goal for this trip was to attend games in cities they hadn't already been, which made finalizing a map more difficult. Cardinal and his wife are hoping to have their first child in the next year, and he convinced Marleau to go on one final big trip together. Yeah, before he gets locked down, right? She was really excited for me, Cardinal said of his wife's reactions to the trips. I couldn't ask for more out of my wife. She clearly is the best woman on earth. They started in Toronto on Saturday for the Maple Leafs against the Capitals game, and then they drove to Pittsburgh for the Penguins game against Philadelphia Flyers on Monday. They saw Sidney Crosby score the game-winning goal in overtime in that game. From there, they drove to the Detroit Red Wings home game against the Kings, then flew for a game in Boston before flying back to Detroit and then driving to Chicago on Thursday. Along the way, they started to make friends and get noticed by fellow fans and also maintain their streak of collecting a puck at each game. So these are either game or practice pucks that they got.
Wow.
So pucks from the ice, not a puck from the souvenir stand, right?
Yeah.
They closed the excursion with games in St. Louis and the finale at Bridgestone Arena between the Anaheim Ducks and Nashville Predators.
Unbelievable.
After receiving 4 pucks at the Kings-Blues game on Friday, the pressure was on to get a biscuit in Nashville, but fortunately Predators defenseman Andy Beteto recognized the guys and flipped them one in warm-ups. We had high expectations for Nashville, and it did not disappoint, Cardinal said. We saw a little bit of everything. Great fans, great atmosphere. Overall, we liked Nashville the best. In all, they drove 1,596 miles and flew 1,719 miles in 8 days and had several more memories that will last for years to come. Best thing about going place to place every day was seeing new rinks, new cities, and new chants from the fans, Cardinal said. All things must come to an end. So, great little article.
Absolutely incredible. That would cost me a lot of money to do it. I don't know that I could do it, but if I could, I would do it.
Wow.
That is really something.
Yep.
I guess they just parked their car and then made the flights to Boston.
Or they rented.
Yeah.
They rented a car one way, which I'm sure is not cheap.
Yeah.
I'm sure they blew a ton of cash on that trip.
Oh, my God.
The tickets alone, never mind the hotel rooms. And
yeah.
Although it sounds like both guys have pretty decent jobs, so I'm sure they can afford it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, interesting story.
It's a great one.
And I want to also inject another breaking news story. And we'll probably talk about it more next week. But this article came out on NHL.com at 7:42 p.m., which is about 30 minutes ago. Seattle ownership group has been authorized to file an application for NHL expansion team, NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman said earlier today.
Wow.
The cost of the team will be $650 million, and Commissioner Bettman said the NHL is looking at only Seattle for possible expansion. The group includes Jerry Bruckheimer, a Hollywood producer, and David Bonderman, a private equity CEO. Seattle would become the NHL's 32nd team. That doesn't mean we've granted an expansion team, Commissioner Bettman said following the Board of Governors meeting. We have agreed as a league to take and consider an expansion application and let them run in the next few months for a season ticket drive. The Seattle City Council approved privately financed $600 million renovation to Key Arena on Monday. The arena, which opened in 1962, was home to the NBA's Seattle Supersonics from 67 to 78 and 85 to 94 and 95 to 2008 prior to their relocation to Oklahoma City. The preliminary ticket drive could be similar to the one conducted by the Vegas Golden Knights before they were awarded an expansion team that began play this season. The Vegas expansion fee was $500 million. Oof. What, 2 years? It goes up $150 million?
Yeah.
Although Seattle's never had an NHL team, the Seattle Metropolitans, who played in the Pacific Coast Hockey Association from 1915 to 24, won the Stanley Cup in 1917.
Yes, they did.
Defeating the Montreal Canadiens 3-1 in the best-of-5 series. And I believe that's also the answer to a trivia question. Who was the first American team to win the Stanley Cup?
Yep.
And that's the Seattle Metropolitans.
Seattle Metropolitans.
So, wow, that's big news.
That is.
To end the show with?
Stunningly big news. And
this may happen quicker than we thought.
I would not be surprised if they're successful.
Yep. Again, they did say in that article we talked about earlier, 2021 would be the first season that arena will be ready to host a team. So the process is going to take a while. That's 4 years from now.
Yeah.
So it's going to take a while, but it looks like they're getting the process underway. And then there's the article right there for the Hurricanes. Okay. All right. We've covered a lot. We've had a couple of breaking news stories. Let's call it a week so we can go watch some hockey.
Yeah, there you go, Wing.
I know the Rangers aren't playing tonight, but I got a game to watch.
You've got a game. That's
Hurricanes,
true.
And the Hurricanes are on later on, so I'll probably edit this podcast while I'm watching that game. So that'll give me kill two birds, right?
There you go.
So, all right. Well, unless you have anything else, we're going to go ahead and end it for the week.
I think that's it, Wayne, but this has been an all-encompassing, touch-all-the-bases type of a podcast. We certainly have hit on everything except maybe women's hockey.
We even hit on that. We talked about Amanda Kessel.
On that, yes, with Phil Kessel's sister.
Yeah.
So we touched on it all.
Yeah. So yeah, we have hit it all. So all right. Well, let's go ahead and end it. So until next week, we're going to record at the same time, same place next Thursday, unless things change. I will see you next week, Steve.
Sounds good, Wayne. Good night.
All right. Have a good night.